How's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks type thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes. We will be breaking down the Crosstown Showdown, also known as the White Sox World Series.
That's all we had. That's all we had.
Referred to it. I heard that in many places. I was impressed that you had it as well. It could have
the
also
White Sox Fan World Series is a better way to put it, but
could have also been called the White Sox fuck job on the Cubs if they had actually pulled out that last game after laying down for the Milwaukee Brewers the weekend before. Just completely ruined
predicted.
Yeah, exactly how you predicted. Diabolical. I've got to talk about what's going on with Marcus Stroman. You've got to talk about what's going on with your front office, with your internal audit, potential dramatic changes afoot.
Choke.
Yeah. We've actually got an aesthetics we want to throw in for your White Sox there. We'll talk about. It's kind of cool.
It's right here. It's on my head.
That's right. There you go. For those viewing this.
For those of you not viewing, it's just the White Sox cap.
This is a podcast, but there is a video portion as well. So we'll try to clue everybody in on what the fuck we're talking about.
I have to treat this like a radio broadcast, for Christ's sake.
You've got some Giants shit you want to talk about. I'm going to throw in a fantasy minute in there as well, our new segment. Not really fantasy advice, other than just always draft Shohei Ohtani, but we're not good for advice necessarily, but we've got fantasy discussions to have. So I got one involving your San Francisco Giants that I thought would be fun to talk about. My Tigers, I'm going to make an argument that they are the best team in the AL Central, in the horrific AL Central. So
whatever that means, but yeah, sure.
I'll explain.
I'm not sure I'm in any position to argue. So
actually, you are. I'll get to that, but that'll be just a fun discussion. But we've got more Miggy milestones. Miguel Cabrera is just going higher on many different lists. So I'll break all that down. Then we've got our Badass of the Week discussion that actually involves several Tigers for the first time in quite some time. So maybe ever.
Red hot.
So we're going to try and wrap this one up quick because my Tigers are playing my Cubs here in about a half hour. So
go Tigers.
Yeah, definitely. I'm rooting for the Tigers. I'll get to that.
No. Oh yeah, I want to. Okay,
let's get to this now.
Okay, let's start off this way. It's fresh. Let's get into the news.
Wow, I like that. You followed protocol for me. I appreciate that. I'll be able to drop in my stupid audio for that. So yeah, right off the bat, the Tigers are playing the Cubs tonight. I'm wearing my Tigers cap. I'm wearing my Rickettsville t-shirt. I don't know if you can't see that, but I'm a Tigers fan. So I'm rooting for the Tigers, but I wouldn't be too upset if the Cubs won because that helps. They're the only one that are in a real playoff hunt right now. So I win either way, but I'm definitely rooting for the Cubs or rooting for the Tigers tonight, but I'll be fine. So I don't know.
Oh, good. I'm so happy. That's all we cared about. Everyone listening out there, myself, will Smitty be fine no matter what the outcome of this series is?
Yeah, I mean, if the Tigers were the only one in a playoff hunt, I would be 100% devastated if the Cubs win any of these games. So it's just easy to split my allegiances. But we did like a 2.5 hour podcast last time, and I bet you we'll be able to do this one in under an hour. So
yeah, I think it's going to be streamlined.
Yeah, hoping we can take care of that. But before that game starts or soon thereafter, I've got it here on my TV with the sound down. So if I sound distracted, that's my excuse. Sorry about that, but in advance. But the Cubs had a more interesting series this week with your Chicago White Sox. As we mentioned, it was the White Sox World Series, apparently.
Yeah.
There's not much else to live for right now as a 2023 White Sox fan.
Yeah, it was the only thing that had any. I think it is the only thing that had any ounce of excitement, even if it was just purely parody for White Sox fans. Just because there's so many storylines more recently between the organizations, even like like who won the Quintana Cease Eloy trade, and
They both went through gut rehab rebuilds.
Right, exactly. The Cubs won a World Series. The Sox failed. And then we've got a lot of these players have all played each other a lot too. So there's not like that. They seem to have a much more friendly demeanor between themselves than what, bubbled up earlier in this rivalry with like the Barrett punch to the face to Brzezinski, which was
I'd be surprised to see that again. I didn't even see fights in the stands this week, which is
no, I know. Thank
nice.
God.
So,
it
seemed like a super cool atmosphere in general. Just like it did. I mean, even for Cubs fans, it feels like the playoffs, and it was epic. Both games were epic for different reasons. So it really lived up to it. Honestly, right off the top, I think the White Sox outplayed the Cubs for 17 out of the 18 innings. It was just that 9th inning in game 2 that was the separator. But so I guess you've played your best series. I mean, it's 2 games, but that seemed like one of the best series the White Sox have played in quite some time. Certainly better than what they did the weekend before and the weekend since. So.
Oh God, yeah. Well, we had Sunday, but honestly, there were more than a few White Sox highlights. One I have to bring forth was Yasmani Grandal threw a runner out at second and made by far his best throw in like the last 2 years.
I actually have that written down in my notes. I'm taking notes these days, by the way. I'm printing them out. So
yeah, you got to write shit down while it happens, because if you don't, it just goes.
We're drunk and old, and I just can't remember shit. So CRS disease.
Yeah, I mean,
it was. I wrote down Yaz had the throw of his life to second base to throw out Nico Horner, who's. I just thought the Cubs were going to run on him constantly in that series, and I think that throw kind of shut down the running game because it was just a perfect time throw, perfect on the bag. Like he didn't have to move the tag at all; it was just right there waiting for him.
Right. Yeah, it was incredible. It was, and it's like, maybe a pitcher finally gave a White Sox catcher a chance too, because you can say everything you want about the White Sox catching, but half the time, if you watch when our catchers are throwing, it's because the runner's already 3/4 of the way to second base.
Yeah.
So you don't your catching sucks, you're terrible defensively. Well, if you want to rate pass balls and shit like that, okay, fine. But if you want to talk about runners stealing bases on us, the Cubs at the rate set that record of stolen bases.
That's right. Yeah.
For them it was historic. That wasn't on our catchers. That was 100% on our pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, not only can't Michael Kopech, pitch well, meaning like throw strikes that aren't hanging sliders, so they get destroyed out of the park, but he can't hold anyone on either. And I realize pitchers are at a bit of a disadvantage these days with the new rules.
Figure it out. I mean,
but you figure it out. Guys have figured it out. You change when you throw to the plate.
Yeah, change your timing. Just keep the runner guessing. There's plenty of. I mean, it's not easy, but there's ways to mitigate it, and you either choose not to or.
Yeah, and is that back to the coaching? I don't know, but now we're breaking already into a White Sox segment. Let's get back to the series. I will say this series for me, even though because we won one game, I guess maybe that's why it was more entertaining. But overall, this White Sox, this is a fun series to watch, no matter who you were. The first game, even though the Cubs came up short, was a fun game, 5-3, and then I knew it. Santos, young pitcher, taking the closing role over right now for Liam Hendricks and maybe the future closer for the White Sox. Doesn't work back-to-back a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because he was solid in game 1. So
my God. He just went out there and he got 4 outs that game. Yeah. He just fucking came in and made the Cubs hitters look ridiculous and then flipped the switch. The Cubs had the last laugh courtesy of Peter Criss.
We'll get to that.
But I mean, overall, I had a great time watching the series. I didn't catch a lick of the Colorado series. My brother's getting married this weekend. I was
Oh, that's
part of
right.
it, but yeah, I mean, this is the first time I was actually like interested in a White Sox game in quite some time, outside of the one I'll be going to this Saturday.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so I don't know. I had a blast. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the series?
I want to kind of just go over game 1 highlights
Okay.
and then game 2 highlights. I've got a few bullet points here, but
All right, cool.
I feel like the Sox kind of nickel and dime Kyle Hendricks early in that game. There was like, I think in the entire game, there were only 2 hard hit balls by the Sox. There's just infield singles just kind of piled up, and it's kind of not representative of how well Kyle Hendricks actually pitched. So that was interesting.
Real quick, there's. I'm glad you brought that up. That in that first inning or that second inning, somehow Yasmani Grandal, and this is 100% not Kyle Hendricks. This is the Cubs defense, made it from first to third on 2 infield hits. How he was not thrown out, how he was not the object of getting the lead runner with as slow as he is, was just the Cubs players were not thinking properly, and the White Sox ended up in a good position because of it. That was the top of the second. He scored on a line drive to left by Elvis. So,
oh, you're taking good notes over there too.
No, I got it pulled up.
Other notes from game 1 is David Ross getting ejected kind of between innings, and it was confusing. Like, what the hell just happened? Why was he being ejected? I saw on the White Sox broadcast, at least, they were speculating it was he was questioning a check swing call that went against Seiya Suzuki, and they tossed him out like between innings for it. But that wasn't what it was. It was actually a balk issue that Mike Napoli first pointed out, and then Rossi went nuts apparently halfway through during the intermission between innings. But nobody saw it. I think balks are so confusing, and they might even be more confounding with the new pitching rules. There's so many things. I've never recognized a balk, and I feel like even if somebody recognizes it and they show you what happened, I feel like there's still gray area in every balk call. Some are obvious when you don't come set. I mean, if you don't come set, whatever. But if you're holding your hands like a little bit too high, sometimes it's a balk, sometimes it's not. So I think it's kind of absurd for Rossi to get ejected over a potentially missed balk call. But I guess it speaks to the intensity of that series. Like, the Cubs had to win those games. They only got 1 done. So I don't know if you had heard much about that, but
yeah, I actually thought at first, and I thought I was actually more relieved for Rossi that he got ejected because of that, versus I thought he went out to argue because he was like, you saw him like drawing a line, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I thought he was arguing the check swing, or like something that was called a ball versus a strike. And I was saying to Robin, I mean, he's arguing balls and strikes. It's a dumb argument because it's going bad both sides. That ump was horrendous behind the plate. So I'm like, if he got ejected for that, it's just a bad ejection, because
the only thing I can think of, you mentioned the line, he was drawing a line. I think one aspect of a balk call is there's like the imaginary 45-degree angle between first and home, that if the pitcher swings his leg over that towards home plate, he has to go to home plate. So maybe that's what it was. But
hey, that's what Hendricks said it was, and I'll take his word for it.
Okay, I hadn't heard that, but
yeah. Hendricks said Hendricks shed light on it, that they had missed a obvious balk, and he was upset about it. I think he was probably just frustrated overall, and that was the thing. He knew he was automatically going to get tossed if we went out to argue balls and strikes, so he chose this.
Well, the way I think it played out is he was yelling from the dugout, and the second base ump just ejected him, and then he ran out, and that's when everyone saw what was going on. So I don't know, but
yeah, whatever. It seemed
speaks,
like it does seem though, like to your point overall, it seems like a stupid thing to get tossed over.
yeah, I think it just speaks to the intensity of that series and how much was on the line. So speaking of a lot on the line, I got an expletive laden text from you partway through that game where you were blaming Cody Bellinger for ruining a parlay that you had going.
Oh God, yeah, that fucking piece of shit.
I forget what all the pieces of that.
All he had to do was he was the last piece I needed to get 2 total bases. So if it was 2 singles, it was fine. It would have been a nice little payout. I lost a whole $5 on it. So I was very upset.
What were the parts of the parlay? You had Bellinger multiple bases, but
I had Robert for multiple bases.
Okay.
I had Mancata for multiple bases.
Oh, you're all right over there?
Yeah, that was Robin, actually.
I think you're covering up your mic too.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I had Robert for multiple bases, 2 bases, and then I had Eloy for a hit because that's always obvious. So,
yeah, Bellinger had a hard hit ball, but Colas should have just dropped it for you, and the Cubs could have tied the game at that point.
Well, it may have been may have been an error then.
I think you should have called Colas out, not Bellinger, for ruining your parlay.
0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Fuck you, Cody Bellinger.
$5, so you would have won what?
Like over 2. I think it was like over 200.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
I should have prepared you for that, but
yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. CRS.
That was a week ago. So
well, of course, the play of the game, and maybe the play of this decade in crosstown history. Of course, the Luis Robert majestic home run that came
that was
with a majestic bat flip, kind of posed for a bit, and then eventually shushed the annoying the stereotypical Cubs fans behind the home plate, flipping him off. Who knows? I think they were mercilessly heckling him for the previous couple of pitches.
I think that's who he turned to stare at.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think what I heard is they were giving him shit for swinging at a slider to get it to 0-2, like it was way out of the zone. So they're just saying, "You don't know what you're doing" or whatever. Yeah. He shut him up immediately. But that reminded me immediately of your story where you were heckling Pudge Rodriguez mercilessly at Sox Park back in the day, where he then hit a home run. And he didn't shush you, did he? Did he? What was it? He pointed at you at least.
He pointed at me. He went like, for those of you not able to see this, he directly pointed at me. I was in the scout seats where Smitty and I, not too far from where Smitty and I were sitting, a little more directly behind home plate. And he just pointed at me and then walked back to the dugout. And everyone in the section was dying laughing.
Because you were just yelling roids at him completely.
Yeah, I kept
over
yelling,
and over again.
Steroids, yeah, roids, yeah. He just, like, it was obviously annoyed him because he destroyed that ball. Like,
it's a little bit annoying.
It was a great. You think so? Yeah, roids. Come on, roids.
You're never annoying though, so I don't know.
I know, right? It's so weird. So
well, yeah. Robert's going to come back up in our badass of the week conversation because that was quite the moment that just shut down the entire ballpark. And it's very memorable until game 2, where there was an equally memorable moment, maybe more memorable. I don't know. We can debate that, but unless you had other thoughts about your victory in game 1.
No, I did not.
Well, like I said, I really feel like overall, if you add up all the innings, the White Sox were the better team. They won. They were the better team for 17 out of those 18 innings. It was just that 9th inning in game 2, it just changed everything. But just some notable moments. You and I had a ridiculous Twitter debate about relief pitchers and playing armchair manager and playing the results. So I tried to put you in a corner by like saying what move would have been better to do rather than putting in Merriweather, who gave up the home run to Luis Robert. He's been their middle inning shutdown guy. And I know you pulled up the stats and they're not trending in the right direction, but he's been in that role for quite a while and has had enough success. I was just sort of defending that. It was just that moment that he the worst case scenario came up where he'd given up 2 home runs all season to a right-handed batter. He would had nobody on base, 2 outs, and then gives it up to Robert. So, but I pinned you in a corner to tell me who you would put in instead, and you chose Jose Cuas, the new acquisition from Kansas City.
Yeah, because as a Kansas City Royal, he just owned the White Sox.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the very next evening,
I was dying laughing, by the way.
Well, the irony of ironies is I've forced you to have come up with that, and first time he immediately comes out just hours after and can't get an out. In fact, loads the bases and to bring in Michael Fulmer. And Fulmer was probably the right answer for game 1 if we had dug deeper into it, because he's basically their 8th inning guy that's just started out the season pretty shaky and has been lights out since. But he was fucking lights out in game 2. Inherited, bases loaded, nobody out, strikes out the side on 11 pitches. Almost an immaculate inning if it was 9 pitches to get 3 strikeouts. That would have the only way it could have been better. But of course, the stakes aren't nearly as high, but it reminded me of El Duque in 2005 in Boston. I mean, that was a bases loaded, nobody out.
Yeah,
he didn't get 3 strikeouts, did he? I think he got a pop
no,
up.
he got a pop out from Veritek.
Of course, that's in the playoffs, so there's a little bit,
yeah,
a little bit more on the line there. But
he same thing though. He went through the heart of the order basically. It looked like dire straits for the White Sox and walked out of the inning.
It was Robert, Moncada, and Vaughn, which is like it's just set up so perfectly for you to take that game or to just blow it wide open.
And I believe it was Ramirez, Ortiz, and Veritek in.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was crazy. But I will make my argument that Cuas gave up less runs than Merriweather. So who's right in this argument?
That's true. Yeah, we could rehash that. We'll leave that. That's what's great. That's what's great for Twitter. Terrible, ridiculous arguments that go nowhere because neither of us will ever back down. That led to another interesting moment in White Sox Cubs history as Nick Madrigal hits a home run from out of nowhere, second home run of the year. Of course, he somehow pulls that out of his ass against his former White Sox. So I thought that was a momentous occasion.
A infamous basket job, yes.
Yeah, you hate the basket.
Well, it would have been a double, but
works both ways. So
that is fair. That's a fair statement.
But of course, the most magical moment of Game 2, and maybe in the last decade of Cubs White Sox history, is the Christopher Morel walk-off. It's the first walk-off home run in Cubs Sox series history that was a game, or not just a game winner. It was come from behind walk-off, which was, there's been other walk-off homers, but it was a tie game at the time, apparently. So, just he had been struggling actually. I think he was like 3 for 38 coming into that at bat, so it wasn't like a given, but you knew he had the power to do it. But earlier in the evening, you had pointed out his kind of bizarre eye black style. It looks like cat whiskers. I think I brought it up early in the season, but you posted a meme of former Kiss drummer, or maybe still Kiss drummer. Is Kiss still around? Former Kiss drummer Peter Criss, who famously had the kabuki makeup with the cat whisker stripes. It actually does look a lot like it. But, so that, of course, leads to the old baseball adage: you can't let Peter Criss Morel beat you. They did it. I think that's all I've got for Game 2. I'm sure you didn't have the same glorious feelings that Cubs fans did, but
you know what? I let out a what the fuck, because when Bellinger let off with the double, my first thought was, and this could be a Grifol, like you should have had if as he described it as the worst loss of the season, I'm like,
Did.
there's so many. I mean, really?
Yeah, that's saying something. If that was the worst.
What about the ones within your division? But then again, it goes back to how much this series is scrutinized in the city of Chicago that perhaps puts extra pressures on the manager. But like how you just didn't have someone ready to go because he's a young pitcher, and if you thought the stakes were that high in the game, I don't understand it.
I didn't think about the back-to-back nights for the young reliever because he's been so good. But if they've been able to keep him out of those situations, there should be a book on that at least, or at least some common sense, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the last 2 years, and that was under La Russa and the staff, and this staff now too. It's like sometimes you wonder, like, are you looking at the splits? Are you looking at the numbers? Why do fans know? Why does it look like fans know more than you do about your own team?
That's kind of my point about our stupid Twitter argument. Is there's a lot more going on that we're not even aware.
Oh yeah, I mean they probably had I mean, I know Rossi didn't leave the dugout and be like, "Have at it." I mean, he was like, just stick to the plan we have in place and who we're using tonight. So I mean, it was fun. We don't argue that much anymore, like on shit like that. So I always enjoy just the drag out.
Yeah. It went I think it went over like 24 hours. Like
it went far too long.
Yeah, really, it did go way too far. So the Cubs finally take it's not the BP Cup anymore, is it? What is it now? The Wintrust
2 years. It's the Crosstown Club. Yeah, the Wintrust Crosstown.
Maybe it's not even sponsored anymore.
But I think it's Wintrust, but I think it's the last 2 years, right?
No, I think that's what I was gonna say. I think you guys have held on to it for several years because they keep splitting the overall series.
Oh, and whoever won it last just gets to keep it.
It just kept going back to the White Sox because you won it like 3 years ago, and then the last 2 years it just keeps like we were bringing up, the home team loses every series somehow. It looked like it was going to happen again until Chris Morel took care of shit. So
that was the Sox 6th win in a row at Wrigley on the first night.
Oh wow,
crazy. That's just crazy.
That is
crazy talk. We should switch fields.
Probably not. But
no, I don't want to either. But
actually, bringing up fields, Wrigley Field, there's all the classic Ozzy meme from 15 years ago where it says everybody hates going to that stadium. It's just a shithole, the rats and everything. But of course, that was before the renovation. So, but I liked how everyone was posting that. Like, Wrigley's just a shithole now. Like, I don't think you've been there in a while. So
it's pretty nice these days. Pretty nice. I would even say back when I wasn't in the visitors dugout, I'd seen pictures. I totally agree with Ozzy's statements based on the pictures back then.
Well, think about the visitors clubhouse back then.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's
right. It was. Yeah,
that's what I meant. The clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you can't blame him for having a strong opinion.
Yeah, exactly. But now it doesn't hold any water any longer, but whatever.
Well, you and I are going to be enjoying the friendly confines within 3 days as you and I are going to see Guns N' Roses.
You know where the fuck you are, Ren?
It's going to be 105 degrees, so hopefully
it's going to be the jungle.
Yeah. Start hydrating right now. Yeah. I got to bring it up. We were talking before the series started. You saw the Cubs in Game 2 where you were going to be facing TBD as the starting pitcher, and immediately I just assumed that meant they were just waiting to reinstate Marcus Stroman from the IL from his hip injury, and he would start. But I think it was Wednesday afternoon, or maybe it was Tuesday the night before. They announced that he had another injury and would not be returning. So it was Assad that would be pitching instead, but the Ass Man. Oh, that's a new nickname I got to get started. I think I saw something.
Carne Assad is what I like to call him.
That might work too, but what the fuck is going on with Stroman? I mean, he started the season as a Cy Young candidate. He was so good. I forget how many quality starts he had in a row, but it was impressive. And then
it was incredible.
He goes to London and just goes to shit. Like there was like from that start on, he had like an 80 ERA, and it kind of made me feel better that this hip injury, might be the cause of it that he kind of described, but it wasn't really an injury. It was just something that just kind of the way he described it just got worse and worse, and he had was able to use his lower half less and less until he was just all arm. And I don't know. It was kind of weird how he described that to begin with, but apparently he got a cortisone shot that would take care of it. It was just, it kind of felt like the IL stint that was just to give a guy a rest, and they just sort of made up an injury. And
yeah, I felt the same way. Exactly.
So I was encouraged about that because, well, shit, he's coming right off after the 15 days or 10 days and ready to go. But then we hear of a mysterious fractured rib cartilage injury that apparently no one's ever heard of, at least for a pitcher suffering it. I've never heard of it. I mean, you've heard of fractured ribs,
Usually
fractured cartilage. That sounds bizarre, but even more bizarre than that is nobody knows how it happened. Marcus Stroman can't even tell you why it happened or how it happened. I don't know if this is just radio speculation, but everyone I hear keeps saying that, well, that has to be a blunt force impact to cause a fracture, which I don't know if that's just trying to use common sense on how something like that could happen. But he's not saying he didn't get punched in the ribs. The mystery comes around. He does take ground balls every day or every other day, which is not a typical pitcher's routine. I think he's a former shortstop, so he just likes taking ground balls. It's just part of his routine. So the speculation when they were in Toronto, he was doing that and fucked up his ribs somehow. So now there's no timetable for a return because what do you do for ribs? I mean, you can't put a cast on them. You can't do anything. I've never broken ribs or had an issues like that, but it's the same as like an oblique injury. You just sort of have to let it sit for a while, and then hopefully you come back in a shorter time span. But the problem with that is he's got to ramp back up again after he's had no activities trying to rest the ribs. So he might be out for the rest of the season, and that's a kick to the balls for the Cubs playoff hopes and the thoughts. Thinking that as thin as that rotation is, it just got thinner. It was working out, I thought, him coming back because they had to demote Drew Smyly to the bullpen, which I thought there was a good chance, and he was already showing that he could be an effective lefty that they would actually need because they have no lefties in the pen as it is. But he's going to have to move back into the rotation now. In fact, I think he's going to be going against the Tigers tomorrow night. So now it thins out that bullpen that I thought they were bolstering.
Right.
It's just a disaster. And it's like, it's just so many weird things have happened with Stroman this year. I didn't even mention, the weird negotiating his contract extension in the media before it was even an issue. He made it an issue, which it's his prerogative, but that's kind of an odd thing. But then all this shit has happened since that. So I don't know what to think of it.
I would think it's just Marcus Stroman being Marcus Stroman. I mean, I just want to make sure my memory was clear on it. I just quickly Googled his name with like Marcus Stroman incidents. It's Google pages long.
Yeah,
there's all the other teams.
There was shit in Toronto. There was shit in New York. So
yeah. So, I mean, he always has pockets of time within the season where he does perform unbelievably well, but it's just there is an inconsistency. I think in Toronto he started off horribly but finished really strong. So like, but he's not I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't think he's like right in the head, and then it affects him in other ways. And the rib injury,
I don't know. I think that's legit. I don't think you can fake a rib injury. I think there's.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that, but how he got it.
Well, that's the thing. Like there's got to be X-ray evidence to show that it's fractured cartilage. The issue is how the fuck did it happen? The Cubs don't sound like they know. They were completely blindsided by it during the Sox series because he was supposed to pitch game 2, and Jed was just kind of befuddled. Like, we don't know what happened. We're not sure. And then Stroman's not afraid of the camera. He'll talk to any reporters, but his explanation just didn't make any sense. It's not that it was even an explanation. He just didn't really have one. He didn't know how it happened. So I don't know what to think. I do know that I think they should not extend him beyond his. He does have one more year after this. So I think I don't think you can trust him, whether it's a physical issue that he's going to break down halfway through a season, or weird shit goes on, just seems to follow him in general. I don't think there's a reason to extend him. Get all you can from him. Probably nothing for the rest of this season. Hopefully he comes back stronger next year, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps he was riding motorcycles with Fernando Tatis or something. You don't know.
You never know.
He injured a rib.
Well, that's enough for my hopefully playoff bound Chicago Cubs. We might as well talk about the other side of town. I think there's plenty of things to talk about still with your Chicago White Sox.
Well, I mean, not a ton, but we have a really fun thing to start off with. We haven't had this in a while. We've got a little sexual harassment. And we're going to start off with our good buddy Bob. Bob is reporting.
Bob Nightingale.
The White Sox are doing an internal audit to get to the issues within the organization. And
conducting a series of internal
interviews, yes.
Which made me thought immediately of Office Space, where they're doing all the people justifying their jobs. What is it you say you do here? I'm a people person, damn it. What's wrong with you?
Rick Hahn's like, I make trades. Yeah. They never met. They're graded very highly, but it just doesn't materialize into a World Series. What do you want from me?
So is Rick interviewing Kenny, and then Kenny is interviewing Pedro, and then Jerry's interviewing Rick? Like, how is this situation playing out?
It's fucking comical. And how if okay, let's just this is the funny part of it. Let's just say the audit was serious. Let's say there's no news, but let's just say like it's a third party they bring in. How is the third party,
but
but let's say
that would actually be logical in a way to bring in an outsider to figure out what the fuck's going on in their incestuous cesspool. But
we have to here's what we have to report back. So Mr. Reinsdorf, you need to sell the team. Rick, Kenny, you're out. Pedro, questionable. I mean, like that's the internal audit.
If Rick is out, Pedro's got to go. I mean, Rick's the one that hired Pedro.
Well, Rick and Pedro, I
think they're tied together.
They're tied together. But so, I mean, they're already speculating since Rick has another year on his contract that may not even be on the table. So
I didn't even know about that. Yeah, he has one more year after this, which is interesting.
But if you're at this pivotal point in the organization, you just pay him out and let him go. If you truly are, if he's considered part of the problem, then him and Kenny both have to go. We know Jerry's not selling the team. No. So him and Kenny both have to go. Pedro goes with them. And now I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of work to do in the offseason.
I mean, you're going outside the organization, which is that's an off-season conversation that will be had by everybody, but by us for sure.
And again, the only way to do it correctly is Jerry would have to hire, and it's not Tony La Russa, but hire like freaking Theo Epstein to interview people and rebuild the organization.
Yeah.
Theo's not taking that job.
Maybe he just takes
his job.
Yeah, maybe he just becomes the president down there.
Well, yeah, or you know what I mean though? Like it has to be that kind of level, but it's not going to be. This is
well, you know what's going to happen. They're just
Pedro Grifol's going to get fired.
I think they're just going to promote Rick out of the GM job into another executive vice president level.
And then get and move Kenny somewhere.
Maybe move Kenny up or make them equal, or I don't know. Whatever title, whatever their business card has to say. But then just move somebody like Chris Getz up into the GM role. So
my God.
It's just another face that is just perpetuating the same system that we've seen that's failed for 15 years.
I'm not in any position to argue with you that you're incorrect on that.
So, I just think that's the most
I think
likely.
The whole thing's a joke. I agree with you 100% that it's just fodder.
Well, you're always entertaining, like I said. So we're dying to see how those internal interviews play out eventually. But
yeah, well, more
dramatic changes. I mean, that was how Bob phrased it. If these internal interviews could lead to dramatic changes in the front office. So
we also know that Bob has been known to be wrong from time to time. So
he has been wrong, but he's usually got his finger on the pulse of White Sox things. So
yeah, except for trades. Not trades.
Sure.
Not trades.
But
in other news, that's a little more positive. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, I am wearing the rebranded classic White Sox cap back in 1990 as we moved into a new ballpark, only to have our asses kicked by the Detroit Tigers.
That's right.
But in some good news, Smitty, it'll be a quick aesthetics conversation, but
we're getting into aesthetics.
We will have more to come later or next week, but there is a documentary coming out courtesy of New Era and the White Sox, and in honor of 50 years of hip hop, that the White Sox went through a rebranding, as I just mentioned, in 1990, and went to the black and white pinstripe with the classic Sox logo on a black hat, and it turned the hip hop world upside down, especially on the West Coast, where Ice Cube and Dr. Dre and Eazy-E were all seen wearing this, what turned out to be this badass White Sox logo. I think part of it was, I'm going to find out in the documentary, I don't know if they'll get into it, but I've always heard it's the points on the X's and the S's, like it's 6 points or something like that. It has gang affiliations.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I heard that a long time ago.
That sounds like an urban legend more than anything. But
yeah, it could be an urban legend. We'll find out if it's truth or not in this documentary coming out this Thursday. But that was allegedly part of the reason it turned them into the #1 selling hat of I don't know if it's of all time still, but it was definitely the #1 selling hat of like a decade's worth.
I think it's more to the point. It's just a badass look. It was a newer look at the time. It hit at the right moment. Honestly, it should have been your uniform for the last 120 years. Kind of like the Tigers have hardly changed their uniform. That your look now is the way the White Sox should have always looked in my mind. It's perfect. The black and white, it just looks great. Nobody else has that exact aesthetic. It's fantastic, and it is based on an older version of that jersey, wasn't? I mean, didn't you have that look at one point? We did a whole history of White Sox uniforms years ago.
Well, we had the red version of this. That's what the red jersey was. It was red pinstripes with this red hat.
So they never had the black and white before in that.
No, it was like navy blue. They had sometimes. Yeah.
It seems so natural. It just seems like that's how you should have always been. And I'm glad you've kept that since at least 1990. And hopefully it doesn't change. And really, you're wearing the Southside City Connect T-shirt. That plays off that same idea, the same look. It's just a natural extension of that. So that's part of the reason I love your City Connect collection too. That just all works together so well. It just looks like the White Sox. It looks like how they should have always looked. So that's where I'm going to place most of the reason that it caught on in the hip hop world, just because it was a badass look and it needed to be worn, represented throughout all culture. But hip hop culture definitely took that on. So that's going to be cool. That's Thursday night. Is it
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Or...
I don't know how to view it. I think maybe just Thursday on YouTube. I think it's a YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure
put out by New Era. So
I'm sure going to WhiteSox.com or White Sox Twitter, they'll lead us in the right direction. But yeah, I don't think it's on an actual network, but we'll find it someplace. So we'll report on that on the next episode. The little nuggets we learned from that, but I thought that was cool. As much as I hate the White Sox, I'm actually really looking forward to this documentary about that, combining baseball and hip hop. I think it's cool.
Good stuff. And that's all I got.
Wow, that's a quick Sox segment. So yeah, your season kind of did end in a way, and as the ball landed in the bleachers off Chris Morel's bat. So I guess I understand. So just had to get that last dig in there. But
yeah, well, I'm so hurt. I guess are we moving into is it Giants now?
It's up to you. If you're ready to move over to your fucking Giants for some gigantism.
Let's talk about, the Giants are from San Francisco, so I'm going to just call this Giants segment possibly Fade to Black. We are
referencing the Metallica song.
The classic Metallica
also from San
song.
Francisco.
That's right. Only 355 days till I see Metallica because I had to buy my tickets 2 years in advance for this world tour at Soldier Field. 2 nights of unrepeated music, 2 unique sets over 2 nights. I'm so excited. I got to keep that energy for only 355 more days. But let's get to something not so good in San Francisco, and that's the Giants over the last 14 days.
Barely hanging on in the A-hole standings. You're a half game ahead of the Cubs as we speak.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, this series coming up in, what are we at today? The 21st?
21st, yes.
Yeah, we're about 10 days out from the Giants coming into Wrigley Field. Actually, I think it's the Monday of Labor Day they come in, so it's a little over that.
I forgot about that.
Luckily, I guess the Cubs aren't selling tickets even though they've been winning, because there's some Groupon tickets in the 400 level for only $24 behind home plate. I might get those for the Tuesday night game. Yeah,
Groupon? I didn't even know Groupon was still around, but
yeah, I'm like,
jump on that.
Yeah, I might go check it out. Go in my Giants garb, tear some shit up, maybe wear the Bonds jersey.
Oh God,
the Bonds
crowd
jersey.
Favorite.
It is a crowd favorite, but let's talk from a Giants fan perspective of what's not a crowd favorite. All right, first their offense. Over the last 14 days, their offense is clipping at a OPS plus of 79.
Ooh,
yikes. That is just part of the story, because what's even worse probably is the pitching. The pitching staff, I had these stats pulled up and my screens aren't cooperating. That's why I sound like a fucking idiot right now. Okay, here we go. Over the last 14 days, their ERA is a 4.29. Now, I'm going to put this in perspective for everyone, because if you go back out a month, this is how bad they have been over the last 2 weeks. If you go back out a month, the ERA is 3.45. Now, so you're taking an average. It's kind of almost of an entire run. You're calculating the stats it's a run less. That's how good they were at the beginning of the month, or at the end of July into the beginning of August, and how bad they've been since.
Yikes.
I just, nothing is working. Maybe this is them hitting a bump in the road. I don't know, but it's going to take a drastic swing to get this going the right direction. They're 3-7, in their last 10. They've now find themselves. I mean, we already had talked a few weeks ago about how, they probably didn't at the trade deadline. They didn't make any drastic moves because they never really saw themselves as they only saw themselves as wild card contenders. But that's in jeopardy now too, because
you're still in the wild card, but they had a 3.5 game lead. It's down to a game.
The Diamondbacks are in contrast 7-3 in their last 10 and are only a game behind the Giants for one of that wild card spot.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks aren't going away. I thought they kind of stumbled there for a minute. I thought that was it, but they're still hanging in there. So that's surprising.
I think when we last talked, the Giants were like 8 games out. They're 11.5 out of the division.
Yeah, division's over, but the wild card is
over
it.
for sure. The Dodgers have just turned it on and not looked back. They're 9-1.
Fucking
part
Mookie.
of it thanks to Lance Lynn too.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Has he given up an earned run yet in a Dodgers uniform?
I think maybe one.
Night and
What's
day.
so weird is he was throwing a ton of fastballs with the White Sox and getting killed. It's not weird. I think it's a change of division, to be honest. He's throwing more fastballs than he was even before with the White Sox and having huge success in the NL right now. So I don't know. Weird shit. But anyway, the Giants were my bright spot in the season, and that is no longer. I just don't see a reverse of the trend. So Yikes. The Cubs, you know what? It's there for you for the taking to even put a stronger hold on this in the upcoming weeks. Hopefully I will go and watch one of those games. But yeah, I mean, I kind of hate baseball right now.
Yeah, you've got a bad baseball juju going on right now. I can understand. I can see why you're down on it because it's a frustrating time for your teams. Usually, having two favorite teams in an American League and a National League, one's usually up and the other's down, or they're both okay, but they're not both struggling. At least, I mean, you're still in the wild card hunt. It's a rough couple of weeks, but I think they might be able to figure it out, hopefully. But I need to keep you interested in this thing to keep this podcast going. So I'm kind of rooting for the Giants, although the Cubs have now taken a 2-0 lead, so they might be in first place in the A-hole standings for the first time this season by tomorrow.
Holy shit.
So
holy shit.
That would be crazy. Well, a little more Giants news that would tie into our new segment, the Fantasy Minute. For more of a, like I said, we don't really have fantasy advice. There's plenty of places to go for that. I would just say always draft Shohei Ohtani if you can.
And I would also like to say, for those of you who heard last week's segment, this clown on the other side here is he's not retiring. I can tell you that because he's stuck at 51 points.
I was up to 53 out of a potential 60 points in our Roto League,
it must have happened for like an hour because I've just seen 51 every day I look in the morning.
It was a glorious hour.
Yeah. So don't worry.
Yeah. I in our last
won't be any retirement here.
Our last fantasy minute segment, I posed the question: should a league dissolve if one of the owners, wins all 10 statistical categories, comes in first place in all of them? Which I was on the brink of. I've since fallen back slightly, but I'm still on the precipice of potentially doing that. Mainly just to be an asshole, I brought it up. But this is an equally trivial fantasy minute to bring up this week, but it involved your Giants, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about. But I saw one of your broadcasters, Dave Fleming.
Yeah, Dave Fleming
was the Giants bat boy for a day, which looked very amusing and strange. But it was revealed that it was a punishment for finishing last in his fantasy football league. I'm assuming that's a Giants broadcaster league or affiliated with the club somehow. But I just found that amusing. You hear about the fantasy league punishments. We don't have, you and I have run or been in the same fantasy football league. Of course, we run our fantasy baseball league for 20 years. We've never had a punishment for coming in last. Have you ever been in a league that has a punishment for that?
No, but I've heard a lot about this. I think it's something that's actually gained steam over the last few years. Yeah.
It kind of incentivizes dudes not to just check out halfway through the season if their team isn't what they're hoping for. You gotta fight to the end to keep your dignity. So whatever horrific punishment we could come up with, maybe we should have talked before the episode if we should come up with something. Obviously, you and I couldn't just be punished by being a bat boy for the Giants, which I think it would be awesome for anybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not much of a punishment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of humiliating. Not really, but just it looked funny for having a middle-aged man out there doing a boy's job. It would. I think it'd be the coolest thing ever. Of course, we'd never be able to swing that, but I don't know. Maybe we'll brainstorm. Maybe we'll put it up as a-hole poll. What would a good fantasy football or fantasy baseball punishment be for fans of the Chicago White Sox or Cubs or Tigers or whoever? So
yeah, that we can brainstorm that. There's a this is and just to shed a little light, this is actually like an organizational league because
okay.
I did find out that Austin Slater and Steven Duggar, who are both on the Giants, had also received the bat boy punishment, but they obviously did it in spring training because
Oh yeah,
in the regular season, would you even notice
you can't.
in spring training they could wear something differently and look like a bat boy or whatever? So but yeah, so this is something that is the punishment for this Giants players / general organizational league they have.
That's funny.
So yeah,
I like it.
That's some funny shit there. So almost shit we couldn't make up.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw it into the fantasy minute because I like the imaging I did for that this spring. But
well, speaking of a fantasy minute, how about a fantasy minute on your Tigers being the best team in the AL Central?
that might be the best segue you've ever just come up with that I was not prepared for in this show's history. So bravo to you. Well done. Yeah, I proposed the question earlier. Are the Tigers the best team in the AL Central? And on the surface, it sounds ludicrous because they're in third place. I think 10 games back, 10 games below 500. I think they're 8 games back of the Twins, but it's also a dubious honor regardless because the AL Central is.
They are 7.5, Smitty. They got this. They're within. I mean, they are seriously within reach. That's what's crazy about the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. Just the idea that a team that bad, 10 games below 500 is still in the race just sort of speaks to the ineptitude of the AL Central in general. And in fact, there's a couple articles coming out in The Athletic today and tomorrow about how bad the AL Central is. I saw the headline of today's and they said there'd be more tomorrow. So it's kind of timely looking forward to reading those. But the Tigers played the Twins and the Guardians since we last spoke, and the Tigers have clinched season series victories over both the Twins and the Guardians, who are ahead of them in the standings. So they've already clinched the season series over the Royals, which isn't saying much. The only team they haven't clinched the season series against is your White Sox. They're 3-4 against you guys. We still have a couple series to go. So
thank God.
Yeah, but if the Tigers can pull that out, they would have season series victories over everyone in the division. It's just the goddamn AL East that the Tigers can't beat. They're 5-20 against AL East, which would explain they're 10 games below 500. They would be, even if they were 500 against the AL East, they'd be like, I think they'd be neck and neck with the Twins for the division lead. So just a frustrating anomaly. I don't know how to. I mean, it'd be the easy way to quantify who the best team in the division is, who won the goddamn division. But throw it in those other stats head to head. Technically, the Tigers are better. So I don't know. It doesn't get you an award. It doesn't get you in the playoffs, but makes me feel a little better. Think there's any merit to that, or am I just being an asshole?
No, you have I have it pulled up right here because I wanted to look at this to see if there was any way to bust your chops. But the Tigers are 10 games over 500 in the AL Central. That is the best record of any AL Central team.
Yeah.
The first place Twins are only 4 games over their own division. The Sox are 2.
So really,
well, the Guardians and the Royals are the worst AL Central teams, like competing within their own division.
So I mean, this balanced schedule is really fucking the Tigers, because if they're playing more in the division, they'd be closer. They'd play less against the AL East.
You could argue they would be the first place team in the division, followed by the White Sox and Twins, like neck and neck.
Well, and then what does that do? If at the trade deadline, the Tigers were sellers, or desperately trying to sell Eduardo Rodriguez. Like how would that have changed things if we had the imbalanced schedule of last year? So it's course, it's the revolving doors of history. There's no way to know, but it's just I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up at least. So maybe I'll give we'll make my own assholes Tigers AL Central Division champions somehow at the end of the season if they maintain that 10 games over 500 pace.
Since we're on the AL Central, just humor me for a minute.
Sure.
Let's look at the AL East records against the AL Central. The Orioles are 18-7. The Rays are 20-6. The Blue Jays are 18-8.
Feasting.
The Red Sox are 16-10. The only team, and this is partially from the White Sox, and I don't remember what Detroit did against them. The Yankees are only 12-10. Wow. So
the Yankees are a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah, they are a dumpster. I think they're done. I mean, they're done as far as
they are done.
Yeah,
they're gonna fire Boone and Cashman and everybody. This would be the first time the Yankees haven't finished over 500 in like 30 years. So I feel really terrible for them.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm heartbroken.
But we've already spoken too much about the Yankees. Let me get this back to my Tigers.
Yeah.
We've had even more Miggy milestones since we last spoke.
Oh, we had a great one the other day.
Yeah, started that last week. We've also had a lot of interesting gifts as he's making his last appearances in Cleveland and Minnesota. Minnesota gave him a tackle box, a fishing pole, a floppy hat, and then a silver hockey stick, which was interesting. And then $5,000 to his charitable foundation, which I thought was cool. But you see what the Indians gave him? I'm sorry, the Guardians.
Yeah, the guitar, but
yeah,
it wasn't
Les Paul.
much. It wasn't so much what they gave him; it was what he did.
Well, what do you mean? I didn't see he did anything.
Oh, he tried.
He tried to play it.
Hashtag too soon, Miggy. Jose Ramirez was handing him the guitar, and he started to box.
Oh, yeah.
With Jose Ramirez, yeah. And Jose was like, "Hey, man, no."
I forgot about that. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the guitar itself, but yeah.
No, but like I was laughing so hard. It made it all over social media. I mean,
something tells me even at his advanced age, Miggy could kick the shit out of Jose Ramirez. I think he's probably got a foot on him, but
yeah, I'd go with that.
Maybe 50 pounds on him too, but yeah,
Ramirez, he wouldn't be able to reach him.
Yeah,
Miggy would just stand back and
I think Miggy would just laugh more than anything, but yeah, that would seem like a mismatch. But yeah, you got the fancy Les Paul with a Miggy. I don't know, Miggy had like his logo on it, his number and different stuff. So it was kind of cool. It had like blue recessed tiger stripes throughout it. So I thought that was neat. Because of course, the heart of rock and roll is in Cleveland. Apparently.
Yeah, apparently, and it's still beating.
But I don't know if you realize this, and few do, but Miggy is hitting 320 since the end of June. No, I think it's the end of May.
Oh, no, I had no idea.
I mean, it's ridiculous. He's having like his best season in at least 5 years, which is so cool that he gets to go out on a high note like this. Even bigger, he had his 509th home run of his career, just his second this year. I was pretty much thinking that, we've seen the end of his home runs, but he had I think it was a 439-foot blast in Minnesota, which was awesome. He tied Gary Sheffield for number 26 on the all-time home run list. He also hit his 622nd double, which if he just needs 2 more to tie Hank Aaron for 13th on the list. I mean, that's just the echelon we're talking about here. That ties Mel Ott on the RBI list. I didn't write down. I fucked this up. I didn't write down what they are, but that's just telling you where he's at with the hallowed names in baseball history. And he keeps clicking off milestones every day, it seems like. So hopefully we can get some more tonight, as my Tigers are now losing to my Cubs 3-0. But that is all I have. What's that?
Who's on the mound tonight for the Cubbies?
I believe it is, it's Faedo versus Assad. So I think, if I'm seeing that right from a distance.
Plenty of time.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got to wrap this show up. So I'm going to end my Tigers segment there so I can watch my Tigers and Cubs. But I think we should get to our final segment for the evening, our Badass of the Week.
Yeah, we got more Tigers coming at you soon.
That's why I like that segue.
I'll start at the bottom though, which is funny to say that I'm starting at the bottom with Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, let me preface all this. I gave you a list. We thought we were going to do this podcast last Thursday. It got delayed, so I just took the next 4 games. So it's been, I think it's the last 11 games is what I'm basing this on. And I basically pulled anyone that's had multiple home runs or an OPS around 1,000 for that time span. So, and I gave you the list in my particular order. You can argue that list, but I thought that made it easy so you knew at least where my thought process was.
Yeah, so let's we'll go in your order and then figure out if there's any need to even argue.
All right.
Cody Bellinger for a home run, 7 runs, 11 RBI, and a terrible 992 OPS.
Yeah, he's below 1,000 OPS.
Yeah. I don't even know why
struggling.
He's on this. Well, I don't know why you put him on this list. Jerk off. Zack Gelof.
A's. Yeah,
Bob Geldof.
Yeah, I needed to throw an A's player on there.
We have an A's sighting. It's rare, but it happened. 3 homers, 7 runs, 6 ribbies, 1190 OPS, and 1 stolen base.
He's a late addition to my championship fantasy team. That's the other reason I knew about it. But
anyway, moving along. Kerry Carpenter. Now we're starting to get into some. Now we're getting into some numbers. 6 homers, 9 runs, 10 ribby, 1158 OPS.
Yeah, the middle of the Tigers order has been raking over the last couple of weeks. That's Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, who didn't make the list. Actually, it was too good of a list for Riley Green to make it. But eventually, we'll get to Spencer Torkelson. But yeah. Kerry Carpenter's numbers are eye popping for that, and it's nice to see the young core kind of emerging. Carpenter isn't the prospect coming through the ranks that, well hallowed prospect that you've heard of for years. He really made his name last year out of nowhere. He hit 30 home runs in the minors, and the Tigers just had to bring him up because they lacked power so much at the major league level that it just made sense to finally get him here, and he's starting to produce at this level too. So it's a cool thing, but he's not going to make our badass of the week, I don't think, despite those Herculean numbers.
That's true. Now, perhaps our most balanced badass of the week, Lewis Robert, with 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, an 11.12 OPS, 4 stolen bases.
Yeah, stolen bases are unique for this category.
Plus, as Smitty pointed out, backflip, staring at the taunter. It resonates so well with us as assholes because of my experience.
Well, it's a badass moment. When you and I, or maybe I came up with the idea, I wanted to throw more like single moments. Maybe I thought there'd be like one incredible catch that could be badass of the week, or something we've never seen before that wasn't just an accumulation of stats over the week. But that, Luis's numbers over this week, over these 11 days, plus that one moment, I think you can definitely make an argument he should be our badass of the week.
The Lewis Robert Award basically this year, but
yeah, pretty much.
The Lewis could be the Robert Bellinger Memorial Award. Maybe
we talked about that.
They both have had like incredible. They've like since Cody's come back, him and Robert have been like neck to neck on this thing so often.
But Robert's won a lot more of these from us than Bellinger has, though. So,
but let's look at these gaudy numbers I'm about to read to you from a power standpoint. This is why, and for all you assholes, and it's the same assholes who think Vaughn should be traded and all this shit. This is why Spencer Torkelson was drafted number 1.
He's been getting a lot of blowback in Detroit in Tigers Twitter, where people think that they know what they're talking about when they're judging a 23-year-old who had only had 600 at bats at that point.
Yeah,
wasn't producing the level that they wanted him to have, but starting to show that now.
7 home runs. 11 runs, 9 RBIs. This is the OPS that normally wins this award, so I'm not about to not give it to this person. 1430.
Yeah,
and a stolen base. He's not really a base stealer.
No, so I don't. I missed that stolen base. I don't remember that now. So yeah, that was all of that eye popping when I pull up the numbers.
I
Over an
mean,
11 game span. This is a little bit apples and oranges because typically I pull the numbers just for 7 days. So
yeah,
but still seven
we
home runs over 11 days is unprecedented. And
but we've had these based over 2 weeks though too when we've
yeah,
had
you're right. I forgot we did that before.
So I mean, as much as like, I mean, Lewis Roberts is having a great year, but we've given it to him before. But I mean, I gotta go with Torque all the way. I think he's a good guy. I like him. I like a lot of the Tigers right now, which makes me feel sick in the stomach.
They're
But
pretty
you know,
likable. Maybe
they are.
Maybe they won't be when they're not 10 games below 500.
Yeah, right. That's how I really fucking start to hate them, and they'll start doing shit that annoys me. Oh, what? Why is he celebrating a game-winning home run? What a jerk!
Hopefully, we have reasons to have vitriol over a Tigers White Sox series next year.
So. Yeah, hopefully. I'm not gonna hold my breath on my side, but
yeah. So I think we're unanimous. Then we're gonna give it to Torque, our badass of the week.
Woo woo, Spencer Torkelson.
Yeah, it's well deserved. I think any other week it would definitely be Luis Robert again, but just the massive Torkelson numbers. And I also just purposely want to bring this up as much as I possibly can for the reasons you stated, how people were judging him way too soon, and it's just cool to see he's leading the Tigers in every offensive category as well: home runs, RBI, OPS, everything, I believe. So he's their best player, and he should be. So I think that is it for this week, unless there's anything I forgot or some shit Pete forgot.
No, nothing this week.
All right, then we get to wrap this one up much quicker. I think it was about an hour compared to our 2.5 hour epic last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna sit down and be able to watch my Tigers and my Cubs. Cubs leading 3-0 last I saw. So hopefully I didn't miss too much. So we will probably, I'm not sure when we're going to record next, if we're going to go back to a Thirsty Thursday. This is, of course, a Monday evening. We'll talk about that this week.
Ooh, yeah, no, that won't be a Thirsty Thursday because I have the Pixie show.
Oh, wow. I'm super jealous of that.
Pixies and Modest Mouse.
I should have came into town for that more than Guns N' Roses.
Well, Callahan was trying to get us
you and I have seen the Pixies, the Bossa Nova tour. Or no, it was the Doolittle tour.
Yeah.
Cool shit. So, well, we'll figure that out. So it might be a bit
Thirsty Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah, well, we could do that. Yeah, I'm thirsty every day. So, I think in the meantime, you can find us on social media at Sox Type Thing and Major League A-Holes. You can find us on YouTube at Major League A-Holes. You can find us on the web at MajorLeagueAholes.com and SoxTypeThing.com, as well as ASSTHETICS.shop, where you can get all our fancy merchandise. ASSTHETIC.shop. And you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace. Whoa, hit a button like that.
Word Hole Media.